Hello, my name is Norbert Thibert. I'm a Voluntas Dei member from Winnipeg. As we're all aware, the district has been working on building a better understanding of our Indigenous community. And because I'm Metis, I've been asked if I could put together a short presentation on my life experience growing up as a Metis person. Firstly, as you will notice that my skin is rather light. My ancestry is quite diverse. My maternal grandfather immigrated from France, and my paternal great-grandfather came from Ireland. However, there is a lot of Aboriginal blood within my family. My grandfather looked like he came off of reserve, and my dad and my brother both look Métis as well. My sister and I, we took after my mom's side of the family, which has no Aboriginal blood in it. So we have different experiences within our family. From an early age, I could see the differences between the two sides of my family. My dad's side, he has 6 siblings, all brothers, and my dad has the highest education, and he didn't finish grade 9. From what I understand, when I talked to him, he just said that education wasn't something that was terribly important. It was something that you tolerated, and I remember lots of stories. He said that it was a 3-mile walk to the school, and their attitude was they left at 5 to 9, and if they got a ride to the school, they got there on time. If not, they would get there somewhere between 11 and 11:30, and that was all right with them. So education just wasn't something that they thought was terribly important. Something you survived when you turned 15, 16. You got out, you got yourself a job, and you got on with life. My mother's family, on the other hand, they believed that education was something that allowed you to progress in life and to do what you wanted to do. So I had teachers, I had medical technicians, I had businessmen, all within my family. So there was quite a contrast between the two sides of my family. And even to this day, with my first cousins, there's a distinct difference between the two sides. It seems so obvious today when we talk about residential schools and the impact that it's had on the Aboriginal community. And I can really see it because looking at my experience within my family and my extended family that was around when I was young, that it had a profound impact on just their attitude towards education, never mind the effects that the residential schools themselves had on the families. When I was about grade 5, my mom decided that she was going to go back to school and get some sort of education for herself. So she went to the Red River Community College here and got her draftsman diploma, and that allowed her to get a job. And so things were progressing within my family. Up to that time, we were living on my dad's salary, and my dad was a garbage man, or as my mom would always put on his income tax return, that he was a garbologist. So things were tight. We certainly didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, but we had what we needed. And, my mom would always stress that it didn't matter what you had in life. It's, that God doesn't make junk. And you can do anything you put your mind to it, because God gives us the ability to do anything that we want. And so that's how I lived my life. Regardless of what was taking place, I knew that, God doesn't make junk. So if I wanted to do something, I could do it. I just had to push myself to do it. When I started school, being Métis really wasn't an issue. I mean, you're 5 and 6 years old. You're there to learn, to play, and to have fun, make friends, and everything was going pretty well. Things did change dramatically when I went into grade 7. The elementary schools in our area went from kindergarten to grade 6, And then in grade 7, all of those elementary schools fed into a central high school from grade 7 to grade 12. And because my mom wanted me to be registered into the Français class, it resulted in myself being the only boy from my elementary school in the Français class. However, what it did do was it paired me up with a bunch of people from my extended family, because one of the other feeder schools had a large Metis community. And most of those people were my extended family from my dad's side. It was clear to see that the Metis in the class were certainly looked down upon, that, they were poor, they were not very smart, that they really couldn't do a whole lot of stuff. And that was the attitude that I was getting from all the other kids that were in the new class that I was in. And like I said, because I was the only boy from the class, I became a natural target. And so, by instance, I was joined in with all of the Metis people. So as a result, they became my friends. I remember one of my classmates was a young Metis boy, and he was quite academically gifted. And so in grade 9, in our school, we had to choose whether we wanted to start taking university courses, whether we didn't want to take university courses, or whether we wanted to go to the resource area. And basically the resource area was for people that really weren't academically inclined, and they just basically stayed there until they reached 15, 16, 17 years old. That likelihood of them graduating wasn't great. And most of the kids that were in the resource room were all Metis. And I think, looking back, I don't think it was anything to do with their ability. It's just that that's how they were classified, and that's kind of how they saw themselves. And they never really tried. It's just how they sort of felt about themselves. But getting back to that one friend of mine, he was quite good academically, and he registered for university. And we were going through, and both of us were doing well in grade 9, grade 10, grade 11. And then suddenly I noticed in grade 12, his marks were dropping. And I took him to the side one day and I said, what's going on? What's happening? Why are your grades dropping so much? And he said, do you realize I'm the first one that's going to be graduating from high school in my family? And I said, yeah, I know. It's the same thing with me. And I said, actually, my mom and dad are quite proud of that I'll be the first one in the family. And he related to me that was not the reaction he was getting in his family. That his family was saying that he was too good for them. That he thought that he was, better than them because he was going to be graduating from high school. So can you imagine being put in that situation where society really looks down on you? And when you do well and you sort of want to get a higher education and improve yourself, then your family turns around and says that you're too good. You really can't win no matter what you do. One thing I really like about today's environment is that in Manitoba, our Manitoba Métis Federation is really publicizing a lot of the accomplishments of our Métis community. I'm getting emails and there's TV commercials and radio announcements telling us all about the accomplishments of our Métis people and telling the Métis population that they can do anything they want. And if there's a financial issue, that there are scholarships and monies available to help them to live a better life and to try and better themselves and in turn better our communities. And so it's really nice to see that thing is being turned around. Historically, identifying as Métis has been something of, a bad thing. It was something to be ashamed of, to have Aboriginal blood. That's one thing that I was never ashamed to be Métis. I've always identified as Métis. And I noticed once that my wife's uncle had Métis coloring, so I asked her if they had Métis in their family. And she told me that she once asked her mom if they did. And her mom's response was, "Je te dis qu'on n'est pas des sauvages." And translated, what it means is that I was told that we are not savages. So that sort of tells you the attitude towards the Aboriginals, is that they were referred to as savages, which is quite sad. And it's nice to see that attitude is turning around. Actually, the funny part of that whole conversation was probably about 4 or 5 years later, my brother-in-law, Lenin's brother, announced that he had received his Métis card. And so I guess maybe they were. And as a result, now I have a niece who is now in school. She is one of those recipients of a Métis scholarship and is in pre-med and hoping to get her doctor's degree and then work in a Métis community, helping those Métis communities from a medical standpoint. So I'm so proud to see that our young people are doing that, and they have ambitions and looking to better our communities. And it's so nice to see. My dad is very much an Aboriginal man. He is a man of very few words and doesn't like talking or dealing with things that are difficult. And like I said before, his understanding of education, I once talked to him about it, and he just said, it's just not something that I see that's very important. I can go out and I can make a living and I can do just fine without it. Which, it's true in some cases. You can make a good living without a formal education, but it certainly makes it a lot easier if you have some sort of education to go out and provide for yourself and for your family. And so it's something that sort of goes countercultural, but it's so easy to see that having that residential school understanding in his ancestry, that attitude was passed down through all these generations. And I remember talking to a couple of coworkers about it, and they didn't have a dissimilar attitude that a lot of people have in our society. Residential schools happened 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago now, and none of us were involved in it. Why can't we just close the book on that and be done with it? And let's move on. Rather than picking at the scars, let's just close that book and keep on going. And I remember one of the coworkers had children. I think they were like 4 and 7 at the time. And I asked them, I said, how would you feel if one day the RCMP comes to your door and said they're here to pick up your 4-year-old and your 7-year-old, and they're going to school, say in China, somewhere that you're not going to be able to travel. They're not going to be speaking English. They're going to be learning Chinese. And all of their letters coming back will all be in Chinese. And you don't have any way of using Google Translate to communicate with them. And the only time you'll see them is 2 months every summer. And his response was, I wouldn't let it happen. I said, you don't understand. You don't have a choice. That's what it was like. The RCMP came, they took the children, and away they went. And I think his eyes were opened because he suddenly realized that, how devastating that would be. I said, and not only that, but what effect do you think that had on your mental health going forward? Like, I can't imagine how it would affect me. And, certainly the idea of school, I certainly wouldn't equate it with bettering society. It would be ripping apart my family. And that's the attitude that I think is so prevalent in today's environment that we need to overcome, that we need to understand. And slowly but slowly it's changing, and it's such a good thing see. As I've mentioned before, personally, I've had a couple of instances, but not too bad. My brother and sister have had some. I know my sister, she applied when she finished high school, she applied to a Metis school and for healthcare aid. And then when she showed up, all of the other students looked at her with her white skin and blue eyes and said, you're a pretendian, which is a pretend Indian. And no, she said, no, like I'm Metis, just like the rest of you. And they said, no, you're not. And she had a really hard time getting through that class, but she did. Like, she stuck with it and she did it. So good on her. As I mentioned before, my brother does look Aboriginal. And I guess an incident that I can relate that best exemplifies sort of his reaction and self-esteem level is we were gone to Prince Albert in Saskatchewan for my aunt's funeral. It was my mom and my dad and myself and my brother. And this was probably about 15 years ago now. And we were looking for a hotel room for the four of us. So I was driving and my brother went into the first hotel. And after a couple of minutes, he came out and he says, yeah, there's no room at this one. So we went to a second hotel and the same thing. There was no room. Went to a third one and he came out after about 15 minutes and he said that he was told that there's a volleyball tournament, a hockey tournament, and a curling bonspiel. So we're not going to have much luck finding a hotel room. That our best bet would be the local casino. So when we went to the casino, my brother said, you go in because I'm tired and I'm frustrated and I just don't want to deal with it anymore. So I went in and fortunately was able to get their last room. So I booked it when I came out and told them that we had a hotel room. My brother's response was, oh yeah, send in the white boy. They'll give him a room. And I think that really speaks to the fact of how he sees how society treats Aboriginals. Whenever he feels that he is being disrespected, a lot of times I think he feels that it's because of the color of his skin. And, is he always right? I don't know. All I know is that that one comment really showed me how he feels about himself. And, how we need to overcome that self-esteem issue. That, regardless of what happens, we need to overcome those issues. So to wrap up, my life as a Métis person has had challenges and members of my family as well. And do I, wish that I am not Métis? Absolutely not. It is who I am, and I'm proud that I am Métis. Do I see that they are special? No. I think we all have challenges. We have a lot of today's immigrants have a lot of these issues that are similar, and they need to overcome what they have come from, and so do all of our Aboriginal people. They just need time. They need reconciliation with us as a society. And I'm so glad that that's starting to happen, that we're able to identify and show respect to each other and to build a Canada that's good for both the Aboriginal and the non-Aboriginal. And for that, I have so much hope. And that I wish that everyone had that same teaching that my mom gave me as a kid, that God doesn't create junk, and that we never limit ourselves because God allows us to do anything we want and knows that we're capable of doing it. Thank you. Or as I said in Chif, miigwech.